You know what? I forgot music for today, Charles. Now that we've been emboldened with musical capability.
The road noise is the music. The music is the city.
Yeah.
Here we are again in Times Square.
Right. And we have a good topic today, Charles. The incredibly stupid man.
I don't want the President of the United States to humiliate himself or worse, our country.
But he did.
He just continuously does. I mean, today's performance, I could only watch a bit of it, but today's performance, in contrast to Putin's press conference, was just so stark. On the one hand, you had a guy who was fed the questions, fed a list of people to call on for the softball questions to be served up to him, and he just rambles. I don't know. And he just rambles and makes no freaking sense.
It's worse than that, Charles. I mean, I have to say, whether you agree with him or not, and you can absolutely acknowledge that an adversary is skilled, even if their interests are against your own.
Right.
But Putin, more than any other politician I'm aware of in the US or anywhere, he speaks carefully. What he says is sensible.
Right.
He's talking about pragmatic ideas, and all they use to counter him are unsubstantiated accusations that we've seen basically no evidence of.
Well, and we actually look very stupid. I told you I was going to left field you on this one. Shortly before the press conference, the Russian military carried out exercises 500 miles west of Hawaii. Vast exercises.
Where relative to Hawaii?
500 miles west. Pacific exercises.
Wow.
Right? So they're having a gab-fest in Geneva while Russia's saying, you know, we can mess you up. We got a whole bunch of forces that are 500 miles west of, that are showing up to do this exercise. And when you, as I understand it from people who are in the military, you don't just wake up one morning and say, let's have a gigantic exercise 500 miles west. There had to have been advanced preparations. I think all the major powers monitor each other's aircraft carriers and submarines and other things. So we would have known that there was a huge gathering out there. It's kind of like when the contrast would be when Trump was entertaining at Mar-a-Lago.
Oh yeah, the Chinese ambassador.
The leader of the country, and having Jared Kushner's kids singing Chinese and all that kind of stuff. They serve up a big meal, and before dessert, Trump said, excuse me, I got to go do something.
Like bomb them or something.
He bombed Syria.
That was ridiculous.
It's awfully noisy.
Yeah, it is.
So it was...
Well, if we can, Charles, let's touch on some of the subtlety for a moment, because I tuned in to watch the Biden press conference post-summit, and it just said live, waiting for whatever, and so I was like just kind of zipping around YouTube looking for maybe another feed, and the geniuses at Rupert Murdoch's Fox News had a feed of Putin's press conference, but it was in Russian. They didn't have it translated and they didn't have subtitles, so they were literally broadcasting on a US YouTube channel in Russian. So then I looked around for another feed of that, and I found a Russian feed of it that was translated into English, and I watched that. And by contrast, Putin, there was a woman who was obviously Asian, I don't know where she's from, obviously a lot of international people there in Geneva, and she was kind of holding the microphone and moving around the press pool, handing out the microphone. And several times, Putin said, let this woman decide who she wants to give the microphone to next. And he just took any question from anybody, including ABC, CNN, who at one point, the woman asked him a question that had already been asked and answered. And he literally said, well, I've already answered this question, but since this is the game where you keep asking me the same loaded question, basically, I'll answer it again.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that was interesting. Sorry.
Distracting, yeah.
Yeah, but it's pathetic what
Yeah.
Joe Biden was doing today.
Well, you could contrast it with Trump, and very few politicians other than Putin and Trump go up against these barbarians in what passes for the mainstream media, and have the nerve to stand up and take question after question after question. In the UK, they do it, or have done it traditionally, so their prime ministers are very experienced doing this kind of stuff. But I mean, Biden, his answers were pathetic. I mean, there's one where he said, they asked him, this was supposed to last 4 to 5 hours, but it was over in 3. And he said, well, you tell me, when was the last time that two heads of state sat down and got into really tough details for more than 2 hours? You tell me. Like, that is not the point. You said.
Well, he said they barely spoke about COVID. I thought that was the most important thing in the world next to white supremacy.
I know, it was really just pathetic. It's the kind of thing where I found in business, if you're headquartered somewhere and you allow somebody to go on an international trip, you will always get a report back from the trip that, oh, we made significant progress.
Right.
It was really worthwhile. And I mean, looking at that trip,
Here's my expense receipt.
I would say, listen, Joe, you like Amtrak. Call up AOC and get on the Amtrak train from Geneva back to Washington, D.C. And don't worry how long it takes. I mean, if it takes you 6 months or even the rest of your term, fine. We won't lose anything.
You've reminded me of something, Charles. There is a huge construction project underway going from like Finland or Norway to the Mediterranean, and they're drilling through the Alps to make the largest train tunnel in history. $11 billion just for this one train tunnel. And with the highest technology or whatever they've got, the train's going to go 200 miles an hour. That's a lot slower than a jet. And $11 billion for one tunnel sounds like a lot to me. Oh, right, but AOC wants 90 trillion.
93.
Right,
to be
right.
exact. Yeah. So that performance was just an embarrassment for the United States. And what's he doing next? I hope he's coming home.
Probably got to have a glass of Ensure. It's almost 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then a nap.
Exactly.
And then a lid.
Exactly.
And then ice cream.
Ice cream.
Are there any little girls he can sniff?
Exactly. Oh boy, it was just pathetic.
I really do encourage people to watch that Putin press conference and focus on the details, because I find him to be an incredibly thoughtful individual. Again, not in terms of doing something thoughtful like here's a Father's Day card, but the things that he says are extremely carefully considered. And they asked him all kinds of questions about the most obscure, complicated details of international treaties, and he answered them like an expert. Whereas Joe Biden can't, conjugate a verb. The guy's an idiot.
Yeah, he was asked, Biden said something like, well, there's really serious differences between the United States and other countries, like...
Right. No, he said, we're based on an idea, and we don't believe that we get our rights from the government. We get them from God, and we relinquish them to government. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, Joe Biden?
Well, no. How did the Joe Biden, who sounds like he's chairman of the Tea Party movement, how did he end up in Geneva? I mean, that is what is the essence of the declaration.
But relinquish them to a government? Why do we
You don't
relinquish
relinquish them, you don't relinquish them, but you...
That was a shocking thing for the President of the United States to say in an international forum.
Well, but I think what he was trying to say, if he understands anything about this, is that we derive our rights independent from government, and government works for the people, not the other way around. That's
not what he said.
Oh, I know, but I mean, the point is...
That's like, boy, you look fat today. Oh, what I meant was that dress looks good on you.
Yeah, I like fat people.
You're not getting out of that argument, and that's the end of the day.
Right, yeah. How'd I do?
Right, I mean, Joe Biden is just so outclassed. Frankly, I thought that Putin was being polite. to Joe Biden by not
Right.
criticizing him further. And the other thing that I found very interesting was that I was then watching another idiot unrelated to Joe Biden, but Lester Holt.
Yeah.
And there
Lester
was-
Dolt.
He had a guy on who, they're talking about Navalny.
Navalny, yeah.
And they asked Putin in the press conference about Navalny, and he said, well, okay, this is a guy who, there's certain law in Russia. He didn't say what that law was, but Navalny left and did all these video reports, and Putin said that invoked something in the law that Navalny needed to do, and he opted not to do it, and then chose to return to Russia, where he would be subject to arrest.
Right.
And so he got arrested, and this is his doing. I really, what I gleaned from what Putin was saying about it is, this is exactly, Navalny is a Russian John Sullivan, a provocateur who's inserted into the situation, and no matter how many facts and details we point to unravel the lies, they just double down, triple down, quadruple down on the lies. Nobody on mainstream news would say, now wait a minute, this was a thoughtful, even-handed Putin who is not, it's not like when Khrushchev came to the UN and shouted that we're going to bury you.
Right.
This is a guy who's sitting there talking about how we need to be pragmatic, and he referred to reports from international communities about where these cyber attacks are coming from.
Right, yeah, that was very well said. And another thing that was interesting there is Biden lied, as usual, and said that in January 6th, the people who went to the Capitol killed a policeman. There's no evidence of that. There is, however, a protester who was shot by somebody, and we still to this day do not understand who did that.
Not only that, Biden is criticizing Russia on human rights. There was an article just this week about two guys who were arrested on January 6th, not for doing violence, but for being in the Capitol. One of them had his head kicked in, is blind in one eye now.
Well, there are quite a few of those people arrested on the 6th, 7th who are still in prison.
And being violently abused by the guards. So let's say you get in front of a judge a year after being locked in jail, and they say, oh, the cops let you in and you didn't know? Misdemeanor trespass, bang, you can go. Time served. Oh, your eye got kicked in and your life is ruined now? Sorry.
Never mind. Yeah.
And then now they're complaining about human rights. Wow, that guy doesn't seem to adhere to red lights. I think he's getting lightheaded from the mask.
Yeah, I could tell he was stopping. So here's an example of urban renewal brought to you by AOC. This is the kind of project that I'm sure she'd think is an improvement.
Right.
So back then on January 6th, you and I were both there, and you have that excellent 5 hours of video that people, I hope, are looking at. But we witnessed contemporaneously black bloc people, Antifa-looking thugs, very physically fit, and the whole thing seemed very staged to me. It didn't seem like if the security was really worried that there was going to be some kind of all-out rebellion, then why were there no police?
Right.
I mean,
why did they let people in the building?
Right. Why did they encourage them in the building? So I think it is good that we're getting back into January 6th. And Tucker Carlson last night apparently has chapter and verse with this guy. Is it Darren Beatty?
Yeah, Darren Beatty.
From Revolver. That
Revolver.news.
Suggesting that not only the 6th thing may have been pre-planned in part by the FBI, who had inserted people in there to instigate a conflagration, but also that the FBI may have been involved orchestrating the supposed attempted kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan.
Well, let's focus on that for a minute, because it's not just this guy saying that.
Right.
He's referring to the court documents, the booking documents from the FBI, and there are, unindicted co-conspirator one, co-conspirator two, and he's saying from that he has determined that those are FBI informants. And I know I've told you this a million times, Charles, and to the extent that it might even bore you, but I really want people to appreciate how this is exactly what was being attempted to do to me.
Right.
Just 4 years ago, Monday or Tuesday, on June 14th, with the alleged dirty bomb hoax in the port of Charleston.
Right. Well, it's
Okie Marshall Richards has been proven to be an FBI informant, and if you Google Okie Marshall Richards, Washington Post, you'll see in 1990 he put a guy in jail very much like what we see happening with this January 6th. And there's all this stuff in my cases focusing on them trying to access an email address that I haven't used in years that I am now convinced is very much like that anom thing that the FBI used to basically entrap people into communicating over a network and then put something on that network. They would just send an email and then bring a RICO charge and say, you got the email, so you're going to jail to get your eye kicked in and we'll work it out in a year.
Right. And it's very much, again, we talk about the business model for charity fraud and in general the business model for anything. Once you identify a technique that is repetitively used, you begin to understand maybe it's the same bunch of people involved using the same technique. So we think about Fast and Furious, which was on its face, the idea that you're going to take guns and send them into Mexico and Central America and see what happens, see how they get back here. And we have Randall Terry killed, an ATF guy, I guess. I think ATF Customs, I forget which.
Customs and Border.
Customs and Border. And forget all the details of that episode. Where were the grown-ups? You know, where? If Eric Holder was so smart, and he's all over TV now, and interfering in the various election races here in New York. If he was so freaking smart as Attorney General, and Obama was so wise, why didn't those two geniuses, when somebody suggested this Fast and Furious approach, why didn't they say, you're out of your fucking minds, we're not doing this. You know, we're just not going to do this. This is crazy. You know, why don't we take uranium and put it in the drinking water and see how many people die?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But that idea just never made sense in any regard. I mean, if you were going to give out cell phones like they did with that Anom network, I could understand tracking a cell phone. It's got a GPS and a lot of computer crap in it. Right. But how do you track a gun?
You know, so here we are at the Russian tea room. This is the center of Russian government, right? This is where Putin, he works there. He's like a Vader D, or what is he?
I think Baryshnikov owns this now.
So Putin works for Baryshnikov?
Maybe. I guess Putin, has he ever been here?
I would guess probably not.
He hasn't really been in New York that I'm aware of.
Now, is this...
No, he was at the UN one time.
Oh, yeah, he's been in New York many times. Of course, of his law. He's been in the top jobs in Russia since 98 or 99.
Well, he was like KGB, and then he was the mayor of something.
St. Petersburg. And then then I think he became prime minister or whatever, president in the late 90s. And then he, one way or another, has been at the top of the pyramid ever since.
In 2000 when Bush came in.
Maybe I thought it was, well, it's a question for the crowd. Why don't you?
I think it was 2000 because I remember being on a plane. I think it was an international flight where they say, do you want some newspaper in a language you can't read or the skinny ass New York Times? And I took the skinny New York Times, and it was Bush meeting with Putin, and he said he looked in his eyes and he saw his soul.
Yeah, but that was after. Well, people in the crowd will send us maybe.
Which way are we going?
I think we want to go back that way and up. This is a zone of, I mean, Carnegie Hall is here. A lot of very fancy apartment buildings are here. A little bit to the north of us, they referred to it as Billionaires Road. And this Dumkov, de Blasio and company, and AOC and others, have decided that they want to put a whole bunch of homeless shelters in this area.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Diversity, Jason.
Come on now, that's just stupid.
Not if, well, no, it's genius if you're AOC.
You know, what we should do is we should sit down AOC and Chuck Schumer, who was given some speech about the dangers of QAnon. It's amazing to me that they think QAnon is real and Antifa is just an idea. Right. That is so stupid.
I've been doing a bit more tweeting because Parler is so impossible to use. And I just like to get stuff out there and some stuff that I find humorous. And I really like the Babylon Bee, which is very funny. So they had a story in the Babylon Bee that the New York Times was forced to apologize to the Babylon Bee because so much of what's in the Babylon Bee is actually true. But it's all satire.
It's pretty damn funny though. And then, speaking of the New York Times, Charles, there's a whole big thing going on with Project Veritas and James O'Keefe suing the New York Times. And they're doing a lot of the same things that other moneyed corporate bullies that if I speak about them directly will make this video into evidence, which I don't really mind, but it's just a pain in the butt to constantly be sending them stuff. But the New York Times, and the funny thing is, I think they might actually have a point. They're challenging James O'Keefe's, what do they do? They hit him with an anti-slap, saying that his lawsuit is a strategic lawsuit, which I disagree with the New York Times. It's not. James O'Keefe has a legitimate beef and a legitimate lawsuit. But they use the anti-slap to dismiss it. That got denied. So the New York Times now...
This used to be a great Russian restaurant, I don't know. It looks kind of defunct.
So the Times has put in an appeal of the denial of the anti-slap, and they now have put in a motion to stay the proceeding until the appeal can be heard, which could be months or years. And the point that the New York Times has is that this anti-slap law is new. So there really isn't a decision. I mean, it's newly amended. So there isn't a decision in this regard. But the fact that they have much more money than James O'Keefe, they could just keep this going indefinitely.
Yeah, you lost me at the New York Times.
They're using lawfare.
No, I'm just
James
saying. I'm just
O'Keefe.
saying. The New York Times. It used to be the paper of record. It used to be something that you could count on to at least not maybe be 100% true, but contain enough kernels of truth that an insight that it was worth making sure you read it every day. I stopped reading that garbage about 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago.
This is a very Jetson's apartment building, isn't it, Charles?
This one here?
That one.
Oh yeah. So we're on 7th Avenue now, and 50, is this 7th or 59th? 9th, I think. Yeah, 59th.
You're right, 59th at the park.
Yeah. And here you still see a lot of these horse-drawn carriages. You have city bike versus going to the bike shop to rent. You have these sketchy ice cream trucks.
Spitting out diesel all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I hate these ice cream trucks.
A number of years ago, I was walking right here, and I see Paris Hilton with an entourage. Yeah. And these little girls, we love you, Paris.
I gotta say, you know what? There was a moment where Paris Hilton was just grossly overexposed.
You talking about her sex tape, or?
Well, and the lead up to that and everything. But then she got into trouble. She went to jail, and
She went to jail?
yeah,
For what?
I don't recall.
Some drugs, maybe?
Maybe like disorderly conduct or something. I mean, it wasn't a huge amount of time in jail, but enough time to be like, I mean, I'm sure it's way nicer.
Probably not a good experience. Probably not like having a spa treatment.
Exactly. I think her house in Malibu is probably a lot more fun. So she sort of calmed down after that and became a bit of an adult, at least in public.
Yeah.
Give her credit for that.
So I'd say this is nice. All these apartments, by definition, on this side face north, and northern exposures are not particularly good. You want east and west.
To grow stuff? Oh.
You get the sunset, the sunrise. Northern exposures it's pretty, in the winter periods, it's pretty dark. That doesn't look very, guy looks more fit than Biden.
Yeah, he should be the president.
Right. Take that potted plant and make the president do a better job. So we do have some updates on
Oh yeah.
Echo Health and on American Conservative Union Foundation. Which would you like to do first?
Which is worse?
Say American Conservative Union Foundation, pretty bad.
So let's start with the Echo Health.
Okay. So Echo Health, interesting that you and I started yakking about it on air a good 4 weeks ago, I want to say, if not even more than 4 weeks ago. And I certainly did not expect the mainstream media to seize on it. But now, I think there's enough concern that we may actually get to the bottom of what really is going on with EcoHealth. So you have Senator Kennedy from Louisiana, who is a very smart person, also a very funny person.
Yeah, Dr. Fauci, did y'all spike that? I don't know what that means, but we didn't do that.
But anyway, he's asking very pointed questions about how in the hell did the US government decide over so many years to give so much money to a charity to do gain of function research, and what exactly is gain of function research?
Right.
But he has not yet, and I've gotten to another senator's staff, somebody I know reasonably well, and I've fed them a bunch of details that I hope they're going through. It's not only that question, and it's when the US government gives money away, if it's a legitimate grant, we could conceivably give a grant to China, although why would you give,
right,
it's
don't
a rich
they have
country.
A ton of money? Right.
So, and aren't they trying to pretend that they're every bit as strong or stronger than we are? But anyway.
Why not just hire those scientists and have them come to the United States and work for us?
Or just have the conflicted folks in the Harvard chemistry department do all the work. They're already paid once by Harvard. But seriously, when you talk about gain of function research, it's one of these things that sounds like you should know what it is, and so people don't really ask, what exactly does that mean? The way I understand it is you take something that exists, and I believe, I don't know, it's this hotel, but maybe one of these, I don't think it's this is a Ritz-Carlton, but there's a hotel around here that is destined to become a homeless shelter.
What?
I know. So gain of function, as I understand it, is you take a virus that is a natural product and you tinker with it. You get your Dr. Frankenstein team to go and take that virus and make it perhaps a virus that, turn it from a virus that would only harm animals into a virus that might kill people. Right? And so that move, the decision to consider gain of function research is a decision that I would guess might be made by the Department of Defense or by the leaders of criminal organizations around the world. Right. It's not something that I would hope a foundation would say, you know what, my foundation that is supposed to protect animals in the wilderness that are threatened with extinction, I want to have my team that is qualified to keep zoos and pet animals and stuff like that. I want to have that team with no qualifications to now go into the wild, find a virus, tinker with it, and see if that virus can't kill everybody on the planet. I mean, that's just absurd. It's like Fast and Furious. The same idiots who did that probably supervised this work of Peter Daszak and EcoHealth. That's at one level. So you could dive into the details and you could say, well, that's all interesting stuff to talk about. But before you get there, you might want to ask yourself, is EcoHealth a thing?
Right.
I mean,
well,
is it
do this?
They haven't asked the question, and they should be asking. And here they are saying, you want to get something for your partner?
No, this is one of these weirdo places, and this caught my eye as we walked by because it's a lenticular 3D print.
You want a parrot?
I mean, this is just all crap. How can this place?
It's not crap. It's junk.
How can it stay in business?
Sorry, I don't notice many customers there, but we should be asking: is EcoHealth Alliance actually a charity? Is it a corporation to begin with? Does it have articles and bylaws? Right. Did it file to get federal tax exemption on the basis of a truthful application? When did it receive federal tax exemption? On what basis?
Isn't this something famous, Charles?
Yeah, this
used to be Trader Vic's.
Trader Vic's used to be a little bit more. And this is the Oak Room. This is the famous dining room.
Well, let's go to Trader Vic's. There's a phone call for Roger Thornhill.
Yeah.
Oh no, the phone call was for Mr. Kaplan. Sorry.
I used to like the Oak Room. In fact, when we raised the money, more than 20% more than we targeted for our Irish fund, I celebrated by having dinner in there alone.
But this is it. It's Todd English now. It used to be Trader Vic's, right?
I think so. And I ended up at Trader.
That used to be Trader Vic's. Yeah.
And I ended up there on my bachelor dinner.
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those kind of classic places. For people who don't know about Mr. Kaplan and Roger Thornhill, you wear his suits, you stay in his hotel room. Of course you're not him. That's south or north by northwest.
So just finishing the thought here. So on Echo Health, we have Bite Me and AOC who want, in the case of Bite Me, he wants 40 trillion to build the world back better. AOC wants 90.
Sorry to interrupt again, but this is very important, Charles. We were rightly chastised after our last show by a viewer. That Build Back Better comes from Klaus, not Klaus Barbie. Who's that idiot with the spacesuit? Schwab, Klaus Schwab.
Yeah.
From his book about the new reset, the Great Reset, that's where Build Back Better comes from.
It's ridiculous. It's just, you get somebody, it's like gain of function research. You say something and then, oh, I've heard that sounds interesting. Why don't I use that in a sentence? Maybe people think I'm smart. But,
well, and it sounds good. You're gaining something. What they don't tell you is that the function is to become more infectious.
Yeah, well, right. So with this Echo Health Alliance, you want to stand this side or go?
I don't mind.
Well, okay.
Where we head?
We're heading to 57th and then all the way over.
We're hitting static right here, so let's go somewhere else.
Yeah. So with Echo Health, we're prepared. The Democrats want to spend an enormous amount of money. We should be asking ourselves, we've already spent over $100 million through Echo Health. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, USAID, going back many, many years. All of this information we've pointed out can be seen on the New York State Charity Bureau website year by year by year. There are also records in USAID. And did nobody in the federal government look at any of this and say, wait a minute, does Echo Health actually exist? And who is this Peter Daszak? Because he has a PhD in zoology, we're going to let him and his team turn a natural virus into a pandemic? I mean, it's absurd. The notion that our government would part with 1 centime, portion of a cent, for any of this is crazy, and yet we've done it for years, decades almost, and now everybody's in a tizzy because we finally figured out that some of this has been going on. It's an epic regulatory failure.
Yes.
And it's an argument against entrusting anybody in government with taxpayer funds.
I totally agree.
And that's the level of debate it should be. And instead of this, well, we should be happy that Joe Biden is only going to raise the top maximum tax rate to some number, we should be saying, no, wait a minute. Why is the federal government reaching into everybody's pocketbook? That is to say, everybody currently working, future generations who will inherit these debts. Why is it doing this, blowing the money, and we're all meekly saying, oh yeah, that's fine, do more of it. Punish the rich, don't punish us, when in fact you're punishing everybody.
Yeah.
It's more proof that we just don't understand economics or math in this country. So I thought we'd go over to the river, up the river.
Well, Joe could go up the river.
He needs to.
Charles, the problem is we are in a bubble of lies in the United States. And the people who watch Crowdsource the Truth, I believe, realize that. But the problem is, compared to the mainstream media, it's a tiny number of people. They keep doing whatever they can to frustrate our efforts to bring this information to people. Whether it's, striking the YouTube channel. And by the way, I want to take this moment to let everybody know that they can watch on Rumble. Oh yeah, I checked it before. So Rumble has been pretty solid, and it would be, I think, a good way for people to stay in touch with the show. Go to rumble.com/user/CSTheTruth. I've had to create a new YouTube channel almost every week. And eventually it just makes it difficult, even for people who want to find the information, to find it. And then people who think they're getting honest news from the New York Times or CNN or whatever are being bombarded with nonsense. Lester Holt and his idiot friends who come talk to him about what was not said by Putin. I don't think too many people are going to listen to that Putin press conference with the translation and all the difficulty of getting to the content of the information. But if you take the time to do it, this is what needs to be done. Putin even addressed that through translation. This is one of the complications of international diplomacy. He said, I feel like when you're watching Putin, I mean, look, I don't watch basketball, but if you like the Knicks, maybe you don't like the Chicago Bulls, you could still watch a game and say, damn, Jordan is great. He's beating us.
Right.
I feel like Putin is Michael Jordan, and Joe Biden couldn't even make it to the junior varsity team in high school.
We should do Waterboy with Joe Biden as Waterboy.
Yeah. I'll
Although
tell you
Waterboy-
about the medulla oblongata, Colonel Sanders.
That's right. But Waterboy in that movie is a sympathetic character.
Right. Joe Biden is not.
It should be evil Waterboy.
Just like the water on
Or
the brain,
toilet
boy.
bowl, toilet water boy, whatever. So there's enough attention now, though, on eco-health that Rand Paul, who has a very annoying way of speaking, but he's really been on point here. Not enough has been investigated into as to how he was so savagely beaten. How was his security defeated, and why was he? I mean, I don't know if he nearly died, but I think he was savagely beaten.
Oh, yeah.
And why is that okay?
Right, why aren't those people in jail?
Right, and why don't we know the real story about Steve Scalise and the baseball thing? Right, you know, the Republicans who were practicing for a baseball game, and the shooter comes up and nearly gets them all.
And he was white. Was he a supremacist?
He was supposedly, yeah.
No, he was a Democrat.
He was a Bernie supporter.
And an SEIU union member
Thug.
with a card.
Yeah. So, but Rand Paul making the excellent point that nobody who received funding for gain-of-function research in the Wuhan lab should have anything to do with investigating what actually happened there.
Yes.
Right? And instead they put Peter Daszak. Now,
What, in charge of the investigation?
well, they tried to do, yeah, once he was already.
Wow.
Yeah. And now this Peter Daszak, when in the scientific field, there are some who have estimated that as many as a third of all scientific papers are completely
Bunk.
invented bullshit. You know, that they're not really.
I believe it.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Because they need funding for the next project.
Well, when you look at some of the titles, they're barely in English and they make no fucking sense. And
Cocaine to the ducks or whatever.
whatever. I mean, it's just these ridiculous titles. So it wouldn't surprise me that there's a lot of gibberish in there. That said, when you take the hard sciences, to be at the top of those fields, there are a lot of extremely smart people.
Yeah.
And they, in the hard sciences especially, you can, if you have the aptitude, and it's not using, math is not racist, if you have the aptitude in science and math, it doesn't matter how much money you have. In fact, the poorer you are, the more likely you are to get into the brand name schools. And at these brand name schools, it's not necessarily that the brand name makes you smarter or more insightful. It's that these brand name schools have huge endowments, ready access to government grants, and so you could do experiments at the brand name schools more readily than you might be able to do in the lesser
famous,
schools.
Right? People are impressed by that.
Right. So you look at Peter Daszak's background, and it's not covered in glory, and it's zoology. You know, it's not medicine. It's not.
Doesn't that cover animal health?
I think it's more like, I don't know exactly what he studied to get his PhD in zoology.
It's more like this hyena goes straight for the liver, rich in vitamins.
Right, exactly.
Make some shows with David Attenborough and shut up.
And what was that? Save the Cheater Foundation.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a really good one.
All those
Your
videos
English
have been
cousin.
decimated. That was the robot.
Yeah. But
Well, they're not decimated, they're coming back. I also do, Charles, want to let people know very quickly, interlude here, the Sunday with Charles YouTube channel is another way that people can see our live streams.
that's good. That's good.
So Daszak is a zoologist.
He's a zoologist, and the paperwork that you and I have been through on the several broadcasts we've done, where we point you to state of New York and other places, doesn't make sense. The simple test: does the increase in net assets they claim occurred on the statement of activities, the income statement, does that increase, and it must exactly equal the change in net assets from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? It has to. That's the way accounting works.
Right.
And if it doesn't equal it, you've got a problem. And if you submit, as the American Conservative Union Foundation has done, as the Clinton Foundation has done, and many other crooked foundations have done, if you submit these false and materially misleading 990s or PF forms into the IRS and then into the various states, and you don't correct them and you're fundraising, you're committing charity fraud. And so
they don't seem to mind that, though.
I think
that's the purpose.
Yeah, I mean, you want to find crooked charities, I suppose, because if you're trying to get your piece by your Fauci and you got a budget to dole out, you want to make sure you give it to the crooked charity so that they'll give you a more dita, a little bite back of the money you give them. But to date, though we've been yammering and others have been fighting to get some justice on this, the swamp will not police itself. It's too hooked on this. It's hooked on fraud. So it's going to take a peaceful uprising at the polls. The people who just had it. Biden and AOC want these high taxes. AOC's living a champagne lifestyle in a Tesla and a nice apartment down in DC, maybe one up here, nice clothes, Vogue covers and all that kind of stuff.
I've never seen her wearing the same thing twice.
She's probably using one of those rent-a-costume services.
Oh, I'm sure all those fashion places just flooding her with stuff. Because if people see her wearing it, they're going to go buy it.
Nancy Reagan got in serious trouble for that. You know, you're not supposed to do that. It's a gift.
But so what? I'm sure she's doing it.
This is one of my.
Oh yeah, I used to love this place when I was a kid.
Yeah, I guess
that reminds me of something. This is amazing, this place, and you know, this is one of the things that used to be so exciting about New York when I was a kid, because we would have this catalog, and it was always like the best mini submarine.
Wait, look at that! You get that big.
Right, that's it, right there. That dolphin is a submarine.
And what's the red thing? Is that a hovercraft?
Yes.
That's what I wanted. I was one of those things. It's like one of these TV ads. The wife it's on now, or a wife is saying, the husband comes in and said, remember when I told you I was going to use a backhoe and we were going to do X, Y, and Z on the property? No, I said, no, I don't.
Yeah, she's like, I was getting back with that hoe.
The same with me and my marriage. It was my money, and we bought this property together, and you know, you got to have fun on your property. So I was really ready to walk in, get into a taxi, come up to Hammacher Schlemmer and order me one of them hovercrafts for my property.
It was an exciting place to go for me, Charles, because when I was like maybe 10 or something, you know, periodically we would come into the city, go to dinner or a show or whatever, and so that Hammacher Schlemmer catalog always had these bizarre items, but it's so expensive. So I mean, as a kid, I wasn't like, oh, I think I'll order a $10,000 mini submarine.
You didn't do that?
Well, I mean, of course I wanted it, but kid, how are you going to get $10,000? But then we would go in there and you see all this stuff. It was amazing.
Right.
The thing that it reminded me about, Charles, was that with regard to today's movie, we are getting to a point where it's a bit of a struggle to come up with new movies. So the reason I arrived at this one, I think I've expressed to the audience that the posters always succeed much more when I like the movie. And I don't know if people, have you seen the movie, The Incredible Shrinking Man?
I'm living it. But with Joe Biden.
Well, that's The Incredibly Stupid Man.
I know.
But The Incredible Shrinking Man was one of those movies. I loved that movie when I was a kid, but I loved it because I was so freaked out and scared by it. I saw it on TV, because obviously it's from 1956, I think. But I remember where he's like fighting the giant spider.
It says Tottenville, and I thought it said via Assville, but it's RSSville.
Toteville, yeah. The movie freaked me out, Charles, you know, because just this concept of shrinking, and then he fights a giant spider, and he fights the cat. Like just that image of the guy fighting the spider. I was 10, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
But it also fascinated me because I wanted to figure out how they did it. It was one of these movies that really inspired me to get into filmmaking and visual effects and all that.
Well, maybe this poster will inspire Joe Biden to resign. Because that's what he should do.
Maybe. I'll give you one last little interesting fact about The Incredible Shrinking Man that I didn't realize until I was an adult and a filmmaker. The director of Incredible Shrinking Man is one of the most regarded, highly regarded directors of the 1950s 3D movement is a guy named Jack Arnold.
Really?
You ever heard of him?
Nope.
Well, he directed The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I think It Came from Outer Space, both of which were awesome in 3D. And I do believe he wanted this Incredible Shrinking Man movie to be 3D. I say that just by looking at the way that it was shot, and it was released in 1956. I would have canceled the 3D release by then, and I wanted to make a 3D remake of The Incredible Shrinking Man. But the problem is, if you're not 10, the story is pretty bad. He basically just starts shrinking, and that's it. Fights the cat, fights the spider.
End of movie.
Shrinks into oblivion, and that's it.
Right.
So it never happened. But also, that guy Jack Arnold created Gilligan's Island.
Another
Classic.
excellent classic. Yeah, I like Gilligan's Island, The Professor, and
Marianne.
Marianne, and
You're on Gilligan's Island.
and The
Thurston
Millionaire.
Howell.
Yeah, he was hilarious.
Was a classic show.
I forget if this is right or not, but Thurston Howell in real life went to some fancy schools. I may be confusing him with Herman Munster, the guy in Munsters.
So back to eco-health. Did
Fred
we
Gwynn.
basically?
Yeah.
Fred Gwynn. Did we? Oh yeah, that's.
He went to Groton. Fred Gwynn.
Yeah. More out of business stuff. So on eco-health, was there anything more we wanted
Well,
to discuss?
that a number of folks are now asking the kind of tough questions, and in Rantingly today, which is a great site, there are multiple stories focusing on EcoHealth Alliance, specifically suggesting there are actual investigations and asking some very tough questions. So we can only hope that folks will finally do something about it, that when you start tackling EcoHealth Alliance, the very same issues, using foundations to launder money, to protect politicians at home and abroad, to persecute people you want to persecute, and to steal money. This is a technique that was not started with the Clinton Foundation. I think it goes back certainly to Iran-Contra, the money
Way
there,
before.
and before that, exactly. I bet you if you go way back into antiquity, perhaps even the days, Roman days, they were using foundations to, I don't know,
Did
Nero.
they have the IRS then?
Not back then.
Well, but joking aside, I am finding information that causes me to believe there is a possibility that this type of abuse of foundations goes back to the son of Sam situation I've been investigating with Manny Grossman, and even before that. I think this is a well-established tactic, and you and I have discussed it many times, Charles. Either you are, this is 303, you're either in the club or not.
Right.
And if you want to be in it, you got to get in on the grift.
You got to get dirty. You got to be exposed so that you will protect everybody than co-conspirator.
Yes.
Conspirators. Let's talk. Speaking of that, because I just want to ask a question of you, Jason. How many messages have you gotten from Ian Walters at the American Conservative Union and Foundation? Have you gotten any pleading requests to come back on the show?
No, it would be zero is the answer to that. And the times I've called him, he always sounds so surprised.
Yeah. Oh, you're not calling to give me money? Wow.
he's like, wow, who's this calling me? Oh, Jason Goodman, the guy I didn't want to talk to.
Here we go, 333.
Oh yeah. Well, so what's going on with?
All right, so
ACU?
I obviously, nothing up my sleeves. Obviously, I've got no information in front of me. But I feel like I have to help these people because
They need it.
They're so short-staffed, and I keep saying that they need to actually correct their filings. So let's just walk through the 2009 990 for the American Conservative Union Foundation. In the ProPublica version, which is available by just putting in American Conservative Union Foundation and ProPublica into Google or DuckDuckGo, you'll find there's a 2009 990. That 2009 990 has, foolishly, the Schedule B in it, which shows you all of it. It gives you the names of all of the people who supposedly, the corporations, the foundations or charities, and the individuals who made major donations in 2009. All their names are identified, their addresses, and the amounts. And with that information, you could do a few things. The first thing you can do is you could compare the total amount of money they claim they got in contributions with the total that is declared on these forms. And so the total they claim they got as contributions and grants is about $330,000 roughly.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you add up the Schedule B amounts, you get to $462,000. Now that makes no sense because in addition, this is supposed to be a charity that's broadly supported by the public at large. So in addition to the large donations, there should be many, many small donations. And so the Schedule B amounts should be less than all of the contributions. In fact, they're more than. So then you go through an exercise and you say, okay, let's look at the names of each charity. And to pick on the one that gives the most money in that year, they just list it out as NRA. Now, the NRA has many...
Is that the National Rifle?
I think so. I don't think it's the National Realtors Association, but
Do they go by NRA as well?
I don't know.
So they might get sued by Letitia James.
But NRA, they just list one grant for $100,000 and one for $45,000. This is in 2009. So,
Uh-oh, wait, we're frozen. And I didn't notice. Damn it. I hope we can recover from this. Sorry, hang on a second, everybody. That's disappointing. Yeah, it's not connected to the Wi-Fi here. Get this added. Okay, Charles, sorry.
we're good. Where should I start?
Well, what were we just before I said we got disconnected?
Well, the 2009
Yeah.
American Conservative Union Foundation 990. Should we assume
Yes.
the American Conservative Union Foundation 990? Should we assume
Yes.
that they caught most of that, or do you want me to?
No, we were still broadcasting. It was just that the picture was frozen.
Okay. So the biggest, remember I said that you add up everything in Schedule B and you get to a number that's like 462,000 or thereabouts. So the biggest donor in that year supposedly was NRA with two grants, 100,000 in one, 45,000 in another. So I looked at two things. I looked at the actual NRA tax filing, informational filing, and I looked at the NRA Foundation, which are separate entities. The NRA certainly did not give any money in 2009 to American Conservative Union Foundation, according to its filings.
Right.
The foundation I didn't see. It's a very long filing. I looked in the alphabetical section and I didn't see it. It may be in there, but I didn't see it. So that's a problem if the two biggest or the biggest donor at whatever 145 divided by 462 is, it's roughly 30% or more. If you are claiming that money came in, but it doesn't show up in the donor's form, something's off, seriously off.
Yeah.
So then you go to the second one, it's the Harry and Lindy, Lindy rather, L-Y-N-D-E, and Harry
Right.
Bradley Foundation.
That has a huge amount of money in it, as I recall.
Right, and I had zipped over this at the time I looked at it originally. They claimed they gave $75,000 to something called the American Conservative Union Foundation to support CPAC in 2009, and they gave that money, they claim, on January 9th, 2009, and there are a lot of problems with this.
Now, should we observe this area for a moment, Charles?
Yeah,
'Cause
we
this
could
is
go
kind
across
of
the
UN
street.
stuff.
Well, that used to be George Soros' house right there. I don't know if it still is.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I was there for a cocktail party
Wow,
a long time ago. Well, one of his kids was in Clarissa's business school class, and so we were all, her class was invited over, and I was a guest. So I don't think he lives there anymore. This is Sutton Place, And it's, if you have servants and you don't care about going to restaurants and having to shop and stuff, this is a fine place to live.
I'll call them later.
Or you can take the call if you want.
No. It's Ford calling about my car.
That's God damn it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be ready Friday.
So they're probably calling you to say, well, it's going to be ready Friday.
But we sold it to somebody else.
Well, I'm not sure what year, but it'll be ready on a Friday for sure.
So Soros' house.
So I was talking.
Should we go in there?
Well, let's wait for the light.
Yeah.
But so the Bradley Foundation gave $75,000 on January 9th. That indeed shows up in American Conservative Union Foundation's 990. But here's the problem. They gave it on January 9th, 2009. What did American Conservative Union not have on January 9th, 2009, Jason?
They didn't have their thing for 2007, I think.
They did not have legal authority to function in Washington, D.C. They were only reinstated as a nonprofit organization in February of 2009 by their own admission to multiple places, multiple state regulators around America.
Wait, sorry, Charles. There's some construction happening here at George Soros' house.
Former house, yeah.
Workers will not be permitted to work on this site unless they have 30 hours of safety training.
And this is as of December 1, 2019, so this has been a work in progress for a while. It doesn't look like they're actively doing much here.
Nope.
And after all, you have to be pretty stupid. You have to be Joe Biden stupid to take over a construction project for this real estate that's not finished in one of the most expensive parts of a city, where the first thing the city government's going to do is say, thank you for buying this property and spending all this money. We assume that you're a mega billionaire, and now we're going to tax all your worldwide income and make your life miserable until you give us as much money as we take out of you.
But
Now,
they're not going to do that to Soros, are they?
I don't think Soros still owns this. And of course, you have the privilege when you're here. You have a nice pile of garbage that you can look at right there. Here we have the East River.
It's a little blue door. That's weird. Oh, I didn't realize this fence was here. I thought we could go through. Oh, you can go through over there.
You want to do that?
Sure. I like exploring these little nooks and crannies of New York that I not only have never been to before, but didn't even realize
Did you
were
say
here.
crooks and nannies?
Crooks and nannies.
So back on the Lindy and Harry Bradley Foundation, and these people are long dead. They created something called, I think, became known as Allen Bradley Corporation, then was sold. But it's a foundation that gives a lot of money principally to conservative causes, does so very responsibly. The reporting is good, except in 2009, somehow they managed to give $75,000 to an entity that did not legally exist in its the place where it was supposedly.
So how does a thoughtful place that knows what they're doing get into something like that? I get it how the crooks do it, but why would something that has so many millions of dollars and obviously can pay a lot of accountants and lawyers, why?
This gets to the question of what exactly is the American Conservative Union Foundation and CPAC, and what is the American Conservative Union? If you're just a rich businessman or woman, there are plenty of them. But if you're a rich businessman or woman and you want to get involved in politics, as Trump did, and you want to be a Republican, in order to get to the top of the junk pile and win, you're going to have to get the endorsement of the people around the American Conservative Union, because they're the leading, until now, the leading conservative organization.
Wow. Do people know that this is the 59th Street Bridge?
Now they do.
Is that the Queensboro Bridge?
I
Same as the 59th
think
Street?
so.
It's a beautiful day.
It is indeed. Where's the Roosevelt Island complex?
Tram?
Must be south of us.
But how come we can't see the
I think it's just south of.
wire? No, isn't that it? Just past the bridge? Maybe not. No, yeah, there's the tower for it right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like 59th or 60th Street. Should we go look at that thing?
No.
We should go ride on it with Rutger Hauer.
There you have a helicopter. You've got. I guess is that Brooklyn down there, or is that?
on the left. It's, well,
Definitely on the left, but due south, is that Brooklyn or is that?
that is, I don't think we're looking at the Brooklyn Bridge. That's the Manhattan Bridge, isn't it?
Well, so just let me finish
Yeah.
on Bradley. So if you're trying to get involved in politics, you'll know about this conservative political action conference, which over the course of 3 days, and now it's longer than 3 days, gathers young people, conservative partisans, people who advise those politicians or want to advise those politicians, and it's sort of a Woodstock for conservatives.
Right.
So for a modest sum of money, $75,000 to get the kind of publicity that you're going to get and prominence that you're going to get being featured in that meeting I think it's mispriced. I mean, when you look at some of the other organizations on the left that try to do the same sorts of things, I think they charge more.
Well, you're also basically guaranteed you're buying a slot on Fox News without having to start a pillow company. So that's convenient. You don't have to get a patent for something obvious and non-novel. You just pay them.
Right. So that's where when you look at this mess, which is what it is, a hot mess, to forget the labels, and you have to say, what is this really about? Is this about people who are trying to acquire power, people who are trying to get paid to help the people acquire power? Is it a gathering for those people where, yes, an element of what they do is educational, and you can argue that it is charitable, portion of it, but is the real game the game of becoming so tied into Donald Trump?
What do you mean,
in the case of Matt Schlapp? Well, I mean, Matt places his wife Mercedes Schlapp in the White House in the communications section. The two of them have a firm that charges clients.
Oh, they have access to Trump to charge Petite $750,000 for a...
Right, and you start looking at the various and sundry people who've been going to CPAC for as long as they've been going to it. What is their real game? How is their wealth increasing each year? How is their power increasing each year? And is CPAC merely a vehicle, one big influence peddling operation?
Yeah.
And
well, that seems clear.
Right, and
but it's not just Trump, because they also want to get people like James O'Keefe. Like, in other words, right now it's not politically, I'm not in the best position to be criticizing CPAC, because there's a million people who are like, oh, you know, they're helping James O'Keefe, and James O'Keefe is fighting the New York Times. I kind of like what James O'Keefe is doing. As a matter of fact, I like what he's doing a lot, but it doesn't stop the fact that's Matt Schlapp's whole, oh, we should be friends. I'm sure if I had said, yeah, I tell you what, I'll stop making a big deal about all of the alleged crimes you're involved in. Let me speak at the next CPAC and, you know, become a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth for $100,000, then I'm sure we would have been friends. But I'm not into getting down with criminals.
Right. Exactly. And so, and there's an element in the political world is a world that I loathe, because there are no rules. It's presumed that there are going to be dirty tricks everywhere, and you're never really measured on what you accomplish. You're measured how extravagant are your claims, how willing are you to punish your enemies and reward your friends.
I'm glad you're saying this right now, Charles, because this was occurring to me when I was watching the whole Putin-Biden shenanigans today. And that is, when I was in Hollywood, and even now, liars, cowards, and criminals
rose to the top.
Do not like meritocracies. They are fearful of direct questions.
Right.
But people who are confident in themselves and their capabilities do not fear questions of any kind.
Right.
And that was Putin today, not Biden.
Exactly. So let me just unpack or undress the 2009 thing in its entirety. So I gave you the number one donor, 145 or 145. No evidence in the donors' filings I see so far that either the National Rifle Association or its principal foundation gave that level of money. The Lindy and Harry Bradley Foundation likely sent $75,000, but what connection does the American Conservative Union Foundation have to CPAC? In the 990, when they asked to describe your top 3 programs, which is a very important section of the 990, ACUF doesn't say anything about CPAC there. Only in the fine print of the detail on revenue do they say that about 880,000 or thereabouts of revenue came in the form of what's called program service revenue.
Right.
Came in for CPAC. Now, when you look that up, program service revenue is different than a grant. Programs, you're operating a program, you collect revenue, and those revenues should be used to further your tax-exempt purposes exclusively.
Like selling tickets to CPAC.
Well,
You're
that's
allowed to do that, right?
well, that's if you exist. If American
Right.
Conservative Union Foundation existed, which it didn't at the beginning of January 2009. So if you don't exist, how can you be furthering a tax-exempt purpose? And why did you call it a program service revenue? How much diligence did the accounting firm do on that? And legal firms, of course, probably none. And by the way, back in 2009, ACUF, I believe, had either a few or very few employees.
We're getting clicking. Hang on. That's a quick fix. I think we should be back.
You back?
I gotta just plug in the headphones here.
No problem.
Program service revenue.
Right, so back in 2009, American Conservative Union Foundation didn't exist, didn't actually have employees. So how did it conduct programs without employees? And if they subcontracted that work to a 501c4 American Conservative Union, did American Conservative Union have its filings in shape in 2009? And the answer to the question, of course, is no.
Yeah.
So I've only now taken you through the two main donors. So 145 plus 75 is 220 out of 460, two donors. You then go through a few of the other ones, and in multiple cases, I love some of the names. There's one called Victory Solutions. Victory Solutions gave 15,000. So I apply the Ortel's first law, and I put in Victory Solutions and fraud, and what do I come up with? It's a company that's engaged in telemarketing in Ohio that's filed for bankruptcy twice, and likely didn't have $15,000 to give to
right.
back then, and worse.
So what's that about?
I think these financial statements are fiction, and what they
Just totally made up.
exactly, and then what they and remember 2009 is when Diana Carr Hubbard, the administrative director,
I am very aware of that.
was not yet in jail. She didn't go to jail until September of 2011.
Moving truck, Charles.
This one?
Well, that one and that one.
Yeah.
Two on this one block.
They're moving in, Jason.
I don't know about that.
I do. Not. So it's one thing.
There's a third one.
Yeah. It's a one thing if you say, look, these forms are lengthy. How was I to know? Mistakes were made. Blame it on the accountant. This is an epic bunch of failures. And then you start comparing things like, all right, American Conservative Union and American Conservative Union Foundation in 2009, did they have different addresses? The answer is no. What they had in the footnotes to the accounting firms, for some reason they operated from different buildings, but the legal address was the same. They used the same phone number in 2009.
The guy even answers the phone and says,
right. And for the first time we discover, this is where it gets very interesting. There's something called the American Petroleum Institute. Now I am a huge fan of petroleum.
I've been to the Petroleum Club. Is that part of it?
In Denver?
No, in Shreveport. We had the wrap party for Julia X there.
Yeah. The oil and gas industry in America is one of the most vibrant. On balance, it is a major net positive for this country and this economy. A lot of people's lives are much better off because of the industry.
We wouldn't have any of the things that we have right now without that industry. And you know what? The more research I do into green technology, Charles, it just comes down to a matter of energy density from the source.
Right.
And oil has such high energy density. What we really should be focusing on is more efficient internal combustion engines while we
Right.
grapple with the problems of making an entire world of battery-powered cars.
So then we go and we look at this American Petroleum Institute, and they claim in the 990 for American Conservative Union Foundation, they claim that they received $15,000 of grants, I think, from memory, from the American Conservative Union Foundation. You go into the American Petroleum Institute disclosures, and they show, first of all, total revenue of about $200 million, of which approximately 30% each year is spent on PR, which seems to be like a pretty high amount
a lot.
Yeah, I mean, why is that a tax?
Well, they got a
exempt
PR
activity?
problem, don't they? People.
I'm just saying, why don't you just have Exxon and Shell and the other people? You don't need to create an institution. Just have, but use
Private
the same
companies
PR
pay for it.
firm and
Right.
spend more money that way. I don't understand why you need a foundation. But anyway, you look in their books for 2009, and it's the same calendar year period. And here you hit pay dirt. For the first time, we find evidence of a donation from American Petroleum Institute to something called Conservative Political Action Conference, located at 1007 Cameron Street, same zip code, using, here's the fun part, in 2008, they use the EIN, they make a smaller donation, $33,500, because there's
What,
two
they
to
get the extra $500.
Yeah, I'll get to the why it's smaller in a second. They put then in that form they say it's 33.5 to the American Conservative Union, using their EIN, and they say it's a 501c4. In 2009, they say 15,000 goes to the foundation. They say it's a 501c3, and 20 odd, maybe 25 goes to conservative, or 22.5 or some number like that, goes to Conservative Political Action Conference, using the American Conservative Union's EIN and claiming that the American Conservative Union is a 501c3 when it's not. So this is the same organization in subsequent years. Maybe they had to change the staff and they didn't check the prior year, but in my experience with foundations, especially established ones, they begin every year basically assuming they're just going to increase what they gave the preceding year to the grants that people they had made grants the preceding year. And there could be some shuffling around, and people that are disappointed get cut out, people who really hit the cover off the ball get more money. But it's a pretty trivial exercise to compare and contrast what did we give last year, what did we give this year, and why these differences, which are all wrong. So
I think a lot of people are going to have a difficult time understanding how that would not just be looked at as a mistake.
Well, no, the reason this is, we've talked about this in the very beginning, the postman only rings twice or whatever, that idea that a standard element of fraud is to crowdsource the truth, one, at a slightly different address than your real address, and then change it
over to charity.
To charity, and then keep going and call it something similar and slightly different, and with that in a different state. And the reason you're doing this, if you're a fraudster, is you want to have as many bank accounts as possible and as many excuses to have donors send money that you want to steal
to the
technically the wrong thing. And if you've got an open bank account that allows you to cash that check, then you send the money in. The person is committing a crime. They're buying the influence of a politician or a political consultant. So they don't want you to find it either. And so they're quite happy to play along and write the check to the wrong name, and they won't complain when the money goes missing.
Wow.
And this is a technique that, remember, I'm focusing on 2009 because it's in 2009 that Diana Carr Hubbard is revealed sometime in 2009 or maybe in 2010, depending on which press accounts you read. Her case is turned over to the Deputy Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, and there ensues about a year-long period where she's under investigation. Finally, she pleads guilty and is sentenced to a year in September of 2011. So if we had, and they say they were working with the Secret Service and they were working with the Department of the Treasury and I think the FBI, if you had people worth a shit working on this case with the awesome power that the FBI does in theory have, the IRS, you should be able to just say, all right, go to the charity, look at the internal accounts, get each bank account. Somebody sent money to the Conservative Political Action Conference in Diana Carr Hubbard's plea agreement. She admits that she did steal money from accounts that were in the name of the American Conservative Union Foundation and the Conservative Political Action Conference. Okay, how many accounts did they actually have, and when were they opened? And let's look at the statements and who put money in and how many people contributed and why. This is something, in the case of the 2009 ACUF 990, you have a total, Jason, of how many donors?
I don't remember. 33.
Exactly. So,
Yeah, I do remember.
you want to stop off at the Himalayan Curry House?
I was just looking at all the. This is a particularly nasty street back there, as far as smelling like garbage and having a ton of, busted up, like graffiti and all kinds of whatnot. That are not appealing. But
Right.
Charles, the line that you're on right now, it's causing gears to turn in my mind, and I have something to propose that I hope you'll contemplate.
Okay.
And for the
Yes,
viewers,
I'll take $1 million.
I don't have it.
I know, you gave it to me.
The thing is, so you're talking about how they create essentially corporate organizations that don't exist.
Right.
But
Fake.
it's hard for people, even when they're looking right at it, to understand what you're talking about, that it doesn't exist. My question is, what if you applied the same techniques to an individual, to a person, to create an identity?
Yeah, you could do that.
I allege that that is what Diana Hubbard Carr is. Where is a picture of this woman?
I'm willing to think about it, but
Because I'm saying she's not a phantom. There is a physical person who represents her, but the identity that is her, I believe, is a conglomeration of other identities, or somehow a concocted identity, and that this person was assigned to take on this role to take the fall. Because if you can have an organization that's not real that you send money to, wouldn't it be beneficial to have a person that's not real, or somehow?
well, as I said to you, Jason, I mean, I'm willing to think about that after we chase down the various marriage dates, because she's been married, I think, 2 or 3 times, various birth dates, the prison records of her
I'm not saying
property
she's
records.
not a person.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
She's been assigned the identity.
Right.
of
No,
Diana
I know,
Hubbard
but I'm
Carr.
just saying in a number of these things. For example, she's fingerprinted when she goes to jail. She might be fingerprinted for other reasons. I'm just saying. Before I leapt into saying that she's.
I'm saying she's assigned an identity that's been duplexed such that
You can actually turn it.
it
like
becomes
front skin
confusing.
and
Who, like, maybe there's a master criminal somewhere who is selecting a person to take the fall for them, and then don't we have questions about why this 1-year plea deal was made when it should have been 20 years in jail?
What the hell is he doing?
What are you looking at?
Guy walking across the street, mad at.
Mad at the Allstate truck?
You don't have the light in the
He
middle.
goes to your same hat store.
I know.
That guy's got a Muppet Show dog. I mean, again, I'm not saying she's an imaginary woman. But if you've got a dirty identity that you want to launder, I think there's ways to do that.
Well, I think it's what I'd love to see is a comprehensive timeline on David Keene himself. I mean, how did he
Yes.
manage to become chairman of American Conservative Union and Foundation for so long? How did he support these various kids? What was the scope of his work outside of the American Conservative Union and Foundation?
Why was he hanging out with Marina Butina, and what was she doing,
Right.
trying to buy jet fuel?
There are lots of questions like that. And was he married before? If so, to whom? and what questionable business dealings may his various wives each have had, has he had. And there are a lot of questions like that. They need to go into a timeline. The answers need to go into a timeline. And let's hope over time that we can get closer to the truth by looking through that timeline. Let's get into the shady.
Yep. Smells like some good burgers cooking up.
The Slim Shady. With the real Slim Shady. Please stand up.
There's a lot of stuff out of business around here. Boy, this guy really wants to crash into somebody, doesn't he?
Idiots.
Keep that mask on while you're driving. So I guess a lot of people didn't hear Cuomo's statement that all COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted.
I think that's a half-truth.
But he said it on Twitter.
Well, I'm saying I think it's a half-truth because the fine print in the statement I read is that if you're not vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. So that means that all COVID restrictions have not been lifted.
I thought he said because 70% of people are vaccinated that it's,
that's what he
herd
said.
Immunity, and so now nobody needs it.
I'm saying that's what he said, but then the pronouncements in written form that I saw said, if you're not vaccinated, you got to wear a mask. So.
By the way, I saw a video somebody sent me, a guy named Benjamin Goodman, who I'm not related to as far as I know, 32, and it was an interview with his father and his stepmother saying that he got the vaccine and then a week later he died of a heart attack.
It's horrible.
And he's not like somebody with a pre-existing kind of health condition. He was totally fine and 32.
Yeah.
Not even 33.
Technically he was in his 33rd year, but he hadn't completed it.
They
Right.
cannot publish in the newspaper that he was 33, which is...
There's Smith and Walensky's.
Yep.
I was in there in that adjunct restaurant many years ago when a taxi.
Oh yeah, what's it called? It's like the upstairs part or something?
The grill. No,
the
you're
grill, right.
You're thinking of the one up on 50.
I'm thinking of Walensky's Grill. I have a little brief tidbit for everybody, Charles. Actually, tonight we've changed the schedule for High Dive with Lee Stranahan. It's now on Wednesdays. This building right here is where we used to conduct the 3D seminars with Lee Stranahan and his brother.
Really?
How I first met Lee.
Not far from here. That's that actor from Sex and the City.
That guy?
On the city bike, yeah.
Is that Chris North?
It's something.
Mr. Big?
Yeah.
That's funny. I was on a plane with him one time.
That was Mr. Big. Not very big if he's riding a city bike anymore.
I was going to say, he doesn't even like taxis in the show, and now he's on a city bike. So yeah, 780, I think we're on 3rd Avenue, right?
All the time.
Yeah, that's the Lightwave Expo New York building.
Yeah. We passed the Madoff building. He operated his his fund.
I do believe that love sculpture used to be over there.
What?
You know that sculpture that says L-O-V-E? That used to be over there, I think.
The one that's up on like 6th Avenue now?
Yeah.
So what do you want to do? Go down? We can't go into Grand Central, I don't think.
Why not?
Don't you need a mask?
No, they lifted all COVID restrictions. Oh, it smells like legal weed, Charles. You know how you can tell the difference between legal weed and illegal weed?
I have no idea.
Oh. I don't know.
Oh.
You just smell it.
Ask your weed Amy.
I think it depends on what state you're in.
Baked or not, or half baked?
Well, like California versus
okay.
Texas. I'm pretty sure it's not legal in Texas.
So what time is it now? It's probably like 4:15, 4:20?
4:25, we're 5 minutes late.
Yeah, so...
And the car is texting me now. It says service engine soon. So maybe they're starting to fix it, I think.
But my point here is normally at this time, June is the time when people do try to get out of the city for the summer if they can. But in a normal period, this would be hustling and bustling around this time. And it's basically dead.
Yeah. A lot of people have been talking, Charles, about how Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street basically own everything. And there was even an article David Hawkins was talking about this before anybody that I know, but there was an article recently talking about the danger that those ETFs will eventually own every corporation.
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's a large, I mean, the share that mutual funds and ETFs have of all stocks is, all securities is very, very high. And many people who own stocks individually cannot be bothered to vote in the annual meetings and read all the materials and stuff, so they either forfeit their vote or get lazy and buy ETFs. And you're right, these asset management firms have outsized influence over
Everything.
Yeah, but that can change if people wake up and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to let Larry Fink, appropriately named, founder and head of BlackRock, who's far left agenda. I'm not going to let him fundamentally transform the United States of America, because he and his wife believe in loony liberal bullshit.
But isn't it too late?
I hope it's not too late.
I mean, Trump let them refinance kind of everything, no?
Well, not everything. Lots of things. Certainly not everything. So again, we're getting close to 42nd. The famous American India Foundation is, I think, in either that cross street, 44th, 45th, or 46th from memory. I think it might be 46th. Not a very nice location. And that was hilarious. That's the very beginning of this project before I knew you. I went over one day because I got so pissed off reading the paperwork. It was so bad. I just said, I'm going to go over to the office. And
that sounds like something I would do.
Well, I did it. And I walk in, and I had read up that under New York law, you have to have your public charity, you have to have your federal papers available to anybody who walks in the door. So I walk in the door, and I said, listen, I want your tax exempt application, I want your determination letter, I want this, I want that. And the lady said, well, why do you want all this stuff? I said, well, I'm really focused on the Clinton Foundation, and I think the Clinton Foundation is a total fraud. And the woman went, oh yes, we know, Clinton Foundation is a total fraud.
What? How could she know that?
Because they work closely with the American India Foundation.
Well, but how could she say that? I mean, that's
not too smart.
Wow.
Not too smart at all. Actually, I'm glad you raised that, or we brought that topic up. Another theme in the business model for globalist fraud is to involve McKinsey.
Right.
McKinsey was centrally involved creating the American India Foundation, centrally involved with Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, centrally involved with the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS work, centrally involved hiring Chelsea Clinton and putting her on her claim to fame as being one of the world's experts on global. And I sent you that thing about some show, NBC show, where it had to be stopped because the cast developed. Never heard of explosive diarrhea, but it doesn't sound good.
No. It's like explosive decompression. You'll know exactly what it is when you see it.
Right. But yeah. Yeah. That's a hot one. Anyway, so McKinsey's also involved in EcoHealth Alliance, and I think any plan that is vague and sounds international and is international and gives you the ability to move large amounts of other people's money across boundaries to regions where there are no laws.
Right.
That's a project that seems to involve McKinsey. And I'm sure there are many good people at McKinsey, but the leadership
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, there could be a few, maybe. But well-intentioned people. But the leadership certainly under Rajat Gupta, who was lionized. Rajat Gupta was a celebrity consultant. He was one of these people who, frankly, every time I heard him speak, I said to myself, this guy is just uttering gibberish. And he's doing it with an Indian accent, and people are saying, wow, what a fresh perspective.
Right.
It's just gibberish.
Well, you probably get some, known billionaire to come out and say, "Oh, we're honored to have with us today,
Right.
shyster, entrepreneur, and PhD in shenanigans."
Right.
Whatever the guy's name is. And it reminds me of what Patrick Byrne was doing at the crackhead event. This whatever Mike Lindell was doing in Las Vegas, where Patrick Byrne had his own crackhead moment and assaulted me. He's like there lauding him, and the idea is people are like, "Oh, I don't know this Mike Lindell guy, but I know this guy." He's saying he's great.
He thinks the world of him. Yeah.
Right.
Rajat Gupta, chairman of the Scam I Am Foundation.
Right. I actually did just load Green Regs and Scam
that was
to
a
the
great
Sunday
one.
with Charles YouTube channel, so people can catch up with that. But Scam I Am.
Well, if you think about it, we have the successive scams. We have HIV/AIDS, and I'm not saying that HIV and AIDS is a trivial exercise that we shouldn't worry about it. What I'm saying is the amount of money coaxed out of the pockets of taxpayers around the world to go into unregulated global health organizations that in theory are fighting HIVs becoming AIDS.
But then got in trouble with the Army for scientific fraud.
Right. The number of such entities is legendary. And then you start looking at the up and down that food chain. You look at the various HIV/AIDS charities locally here in New York and California involving celebrities, and you discover the standard model. There are a lot of gay celebrities, gay people in the fashion world, and AIDS did ravish New York City and the fashion world and Hollywood, etc.
Broadway has a lot of charities and stuff.
But then you look into the actual reporting of those charities and you discover fucked up financial statements, crappy audits, numbers that don't make sense, likely diversions, etc. And you see that people will gravitate towards these ideas that sound noble.
Right.
And if you can throw in a good party and a chance to hobnob with celebrities and virtue signal,
Right.
Suddenly you've got the ingredients for something that can really become viral. So that you saw that happen with HIV and AIDS, and we still have HIV and AIDS ravishing, in particular, the underdeveloped world, in part because the sums that should have been spent to fix the underdeveloped world were hived off and stolen, most likely.
Yeah.
So let's call that $100 billion scam. You move from that to climate change.
Oh, that's the big push right now.
And I mean, I'm sorry. John Kerry, I was told, I'm not going to say by whom, but I was told by a very reliable authority that John Kerry was denied admission to Harvard Law School because of what he did
In Vietnam? Wow.
They felt that he would not
honorable.
He wouldn't be able to pass the bar.
Wow.
What's the truth? And so here's a guy who's a moron. The only thing he can do well is marry rich women.
That's
and
a skill, I gotta admit. I can't quite do that.
Yeah. And so so he's good at that. He's good at spending other people's money and living large on his various fancy homes and jets and yachts and all this kind of
A
stuff.
lot of ketchup.
And nobody asks, well, John, your kids are flown the coop, you're living there with your second wife. Why do you need all these homes? And why are you telling me that I got to worry about climate change
Right.
when you're worried about flying all over the world at taxpayer
What's
expense?
his carbon footprint?
It's huge. So the climate, I'm not saying again that there are not challenges to protecting the environment here on this planet, both on land, at sea, and elsewhere in the atmosphere. Of course there are challenges. Do we understand them?
Not well.
No, we don't. Is the model that predicted global warming accurate? Absolutely not. It is
Coming from the same people who did the hoof and mouth disease and the COVID model.
Right. Yeah, and maybe let's cross to get to the dark
Sure,
side.
yeah.
We'll go to the dark side, Jason. Just on the sidewalk
Dark
here.
side of the moon.
And dark side of the buffoon. But that climate change thing is being used as an excuse through C40 cities to pack people into cities, corrupt cities, where oligarchs and crooked politicians steal probably trillions of dollars. And that's been going, and shame on Mayor Mike Bloomberg. I mean, his philanthropy in many respects is fantastic. But when it comes to the C40 cities, Ira Magaziner and the Clintons bamboozled Mike when he was mayor.
Did they, though?
I think they did.
He's in on it.
I don't know. I mean, he's done a lot of good
I
philanthropic
don't agree.
work.
The Bloomberg, that Johns
Philanthropy.
Hopkins School of Medicine, this is the seat of all the nonsense with the coronavirus. The map.
He's done a lot of good
He
stuff.
just appears on TV eating gay ice cream. I don't.
No,
like
he's
Bloomberg.
done on his philanthropy. He's done a lot of good stuff, but I don't particularly like him. But I think it's unfair to lump him in to people who had no money, who've gotten rich off philanthropy, like the Clintons. And it's very different.
I'm trying to. I can't even do his annoying voice. He's so annoying.
Yeah, an authentic New Yorker with a Massachusetts accent, which Massachusetts friends of mine refer to themselves as massholes.
That's what he is.
Yeah. But anyway, so this climate change thing, if we're going to burn the country down to save the planet, or we're going to lock the country down again to save the planet, let's see some hard evidence. And there is none.
They hate evidence.
Yeah. In fact, there's no evidence at all, and there won't be. But I'm open-minded enough to say, show me some evidence and let's really check it.
That's what Putin said, and they were like, "Oh, see how he's not taking responsibility."
Yeah, it's the reverse. So, so you move from climate to this COVID stuff, and the very same people who were chicken little alarmists telling us, frightening the living crap out of Trump and others, suggesting that you're going to have, the scenes in China where they were barricading,
people dying in the street.
well, they were basically welding the doors shut of apartment houses so that to let those people die horrific deaths, and that we'd be running out of hospital beds. And,
No food. How do you get out of the apartment building if it's welded shut?
right. So the very same people who were making all those predictions and saying, "Oh, it's just 15 days to stop the spread," and we still are, I would say, effectively under partial shutdown now. It's not back to normal.
No.
And those people want us to pause economic activity to arrest global warming. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just their latest idea for lockdown. What's that matto? Isn't that a strange drawing?
I don't know. I just think it's an Italian pastry shop, coffee and pastry shop. There we have the American Kennel Club Museum of the Dog. That's your kind of place.
The AKO Museum of the Dog. I didn't know that existed.
AKC, I think. American Kennel Club.
Oh, yeah. So, Charles, did you see this rally yesterday that was billed as a day of rage for Palestinians?
Did it go well?
Well, nobody got beat up as far as I know, so that's good in my
That is good.
opinion.
So I didn't see that, but one of the most dangerous intersections in the city is right in front of you.
Park Avenue and
40th.
40th?
Yep.
Why is that?
It's less dangerous than it used to be.
23rd Street and Broadway I thought was the most dangerous, but then they put in that whole pedestrian
Right.
thing to make it. That actually was Bloomberg. I
Right.
give them credit for that.
So this used to be
Oh yeah, right, with the tunnel.
the tunnel, which I don't know that it's open anymore, but
I think it is.
Let's go down to 39th and over, but you would have people speeding through the light.
Oh, well, look, it is closed. Park Avenue tunnel closed.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it was so dangerous, and maybe construction as
Wow.
well. But you'd have people rush through here, ignoring the lights, running the pedestrians over, and people making turns into pedestrians.
I used to live right down here.
Where?
20th?
I used to live on 37th at Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks pretty nice, Park Avenue Tavern. I hadn't seen this before. We showed the audience Sutton Place. This is busier than Sutton Place, but in some ways similar, because there are no schools, or there didn't used to be schools around here. So this was a place for me when I was married and a dink, dual income, no kids.
It's big TV.
Yeah, another one.
That's all right. It's all good.
David Dinkins.
Never the same after I blasted my first serve into the small of his back by accident. It was by accident.
But Dink made me think about him. I have a 3D photograph of David Dinkins, Charles.
I think he's still dead.
Well, I took it when he was alive.
Oh, okay. So this area, you see Grand Central Station in front of us,
Yep.
is a very, if you have to live in New York City and you can afford it, this is a very convenient place to live if you're working midtown. Because you can walk everywhere and you're not far away from the airports. Across, you're taking a taxi, you just zip over through the Midtown Tunnel to either LaGuardia or Kennedy.
LaGuardia, terrible.
New York City is terrible.
Well, one of the things I like about my apartment is when I was traveling, I could get to Newark very quickly and fly to Europe and everything. I like Newark Airport better than JFK or LaGuardia.
Yeah, Newark.
One thing about New Jersey that I like.
Leaving it. Newark is actually what used to be a pretty good airport. It used to have a good steakhouse.
Yeah, well, what happened was that guy, Jeff Smizek, who was the CEO of United and got involved in some really crooked deal and is under federal indictment, so he had to step down as United CEO. Something to do with that deal had to do with Newark Airport. And I used to go there, Charles, sometimes 3 times a week when I was living in LA and here.
Wow.
And so I think around 2013, if you ever saw the movie Goodfellas, there's
sure.
that thing where they're doing the heist.
Was not in Newark though, right?
No, it was Idlewild at the time.
Kennedy, yeah.
But then it became JFK, and they ripped off the Lufthansa.
Right.
Had some kind of they were bringing cash or whatever, and there was
And they never solved that, right? They never solved.
I don't believe it was ever solved. But what they did do was, I think that was before RICO existed, and RICO was brought about to fight organized crime. But there was some specific law about certain organizations working at the airport, and they weren't allowed. And that law expired in 2013, and all the restaurants in Newark Airport closed and reopened, being owned by one company, and they all suck now.
Oh, is that right? It's a pity. Because I went to that steakhouse, you're right, in about 2010 or 11 in Newark.
Gallagher's is what it was.
Yeah, exactly. It was very good.
It was good.
It was surprisingly good for an airport
Well,
restaurant.
they had all good restaurants there. There was a sushi restaurant, and then they also had the Oyster Bar from Grand Central.
Which
so
is gone.
you could go there an hour early, have dinner, relax, and then go on the flight.
And sleep.
That just made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
And then they made all the restaurants bad. But you can order from an iPad. That's their big feature.
Yeah, well. So I'd be pissed if I still lived here.
Why?
Well, because my apartment was on the second floor here.
But you'd be covered with scaffolding.
Right. I mean, my apartment was literally right. I'd be looking at scaffolding. It was,
well, it would
right
be
here.
like a balcony for you.
Right here. On the second
The
floor.
scaffolding just went up because we were by here not that long ago, and you could see the apartment. My orthodontist is around here.
Yeah, this is a convenient area. Again, if you don't have kids and you want to lead a relatively quiet lifestyle. We never joined this Union League Club, but right across the street.
Human League Club?
Union League Club.
There's several.
Good, decent food, a little old-fashioned, old 40, but one of the better New York City clubs. And then if you need to get a visa or organize some travel to the great nation of El Salvador, you're right next to the consulate.
Wow. That's a strange place for it to be.
It's not far from the UN.
That's true, but there's not really a lot of those around here.
Well, there are a fair number, actually. Cuba is over on Lex.
Oh, but that's further east.
Just saying, we're one block over.
We're getting this is one of the westmost probably.
So what we'll do now is we'll go to 32nd and make a right and go down Madison, and we'll look at the furniture district and we'll finish in Madison Square Park. How does that work?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I'm sure that many people who are considering moving from gorgeous Montana or California or wherever to New York are feverishly, as they watch this broadcast, saying, how do I get an apartment at 30 Park Avenue? What about 20 Park? I'll do that instead.
It's funny. eBay is emailing me to order Men in Black 2 because I was looking for graphics about men in crack. So the internet is tracking you, whatever you do, Charles.
That makes sense.
Pam tells us that LAX International Terminal has a caviar and champagne bar.
Really?
Yeah.
Figures.
LAX, they were doing a lot of construction. I haven't been there in a while. I actually never disliked LAX as much as most people.
I haven't been to Los Angeles in a very long time.
Having been born there.
Right, I spent the first 10 months of my life there. Kind of a blur.
I'm sure. This looks like an aging golden retriever to me. The face.
Yeah, the Tesla.
Where's that? Oh yeah, look at that. The Model X.
Gullwing.
I think they realize that that's a very impractical design that breaks a lot.
Uh-huh. So they sold a fleet of those to the government?
No,
Here's
they
your
made a new
vegan
one.
cafe.
Huh. They made a new one that does not have that type of doors, and it's a little smaller, less money. I like those little Yorkie dogs.
Yeah.
They're friendly.
I'm telling you, I think a dog is in your future of the
I would
canine,
like to have a dog.
canine type.
I'm not going to be able to care for it properly in an apartment.
You get one of those, there's a commercial where they have a hood ornament that's singing, dog singing, so you can get.
I know you don't like Shark Tank, Charles, but
I watch it from time to time.
there was a woman on there who invented a device where you could train. She invented this device that was like a cat litter box that goes on top of your toilet to train the cat to use the toilet.
Right.
And so you put it on there, and then the cat goes up there and uses the litter box there. And then after a week or whatever, there's a small hole in the center that you like pop out of the plastic, and then it's like a litter donut, and the cat goes in there. And then each week you're opening the center is like increasing size holes. So look at that pickup truck.
There you go.
And the idea is each week the hole in the center gets larger and larger, and the cat realizes what's going on, and eventually there's no hole, and the cat just climbs up onto the toilet and uses the toilet with no litter box. And I'm thinking, that is a brilliant, ingenious idea, because there are few things in the world that I dislike more than a cat litter box.
Well, but yeah, there's a process that I don't think Joe Biden could follow. I don't think he would train himself.
Just fall in the toilet on the first day?
Exactly. Again.
Wolfgang's Steakhouse looks closed.
Yeah, maybe it's about to reopen. Yeah, there are people in there.
But the outside part doesn't look good. Is that Wolfgang Puck?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. Wolfgang, could be Wolfgang Schmuck. But, so this is technically the end of Park Avenue, 2 Park Avenue here.
Well, then we get to Park Avenue South.
And I used to live on Park Avenue South as well. 23rd Street. 40 years ago.
This is out.
Prime retail space available.
Yeah, no shortage.
Berry and burrata.
This actually smells good.
It smells to me like
Sweet
like
green.
polish, like shoe polish.
Really? Maybe my brain was thinking burrata, but
My nose was smelling
shoe polish.
nail polish
Yeah.
or shoe polish or something. But this,
That's the burrata.
you say
Good
so.
burrata will get you like shellac.
So for people who, we were talking about this, but on my Twitter feed I put out, prior to, while we're waiting for Biden to do his press conference, I put out Red Skelton, a 6-minute or 8-minute clip of Red Skelton, the hilarious vaudeville comedian, then I guess, movie star.
TV also, yeah.
Yeah. Doing an ad for
He's British, right?
Red Skelton?
Is he?
I don't know. But Bob Hope was born in London, in England. I don't know if he's Skelton is somewhere, but very, very funny slapstick stuff. But and then I also there's a television show, English television show called Fawlty Towers, which is about a beleaguered husband.
So you see that, Charles? It's a family of wise asses.
What do they say?
Just turn around and be on the show. Hey, look at that New World Order acorn, or not an acorn. What is that? An artichoke?
I don't know. But so Fawlty Towers is about a hotel on the seacoast in England, and this husband is played, this henpecked husband, John Cleese, the famous comedian of Monty Python fame, and his wife, I forget if the wife is who the wife is, but she's just this annoying scold, and they get into all kinds of misadventures. There are only, I believe, 12 episodes.
Yeah, it was very short-lived. Charles, this is a rare opportunity for all of our non-New York Scaffolding fans to see a scaffolding under construction.
Yeah. Or coming off construction, right?
Or whatever.
So,
mid-scaff.
in the Fawlty Towers episode that I put up, or excerpts of it, there's a character called Major Gowen, G-O-W-E-N,
Right.
who is about, he's got 17% of his brain left.
He's
which
smarter
is
than Joe Biden.
17 times more than Joe has left. But he even looks a little bit, he could be in the Biden family, maybe the ancient, a branch of it that remains.
A couple hits of crack and he's there.
Right. But the performance of that character was so much better than Joe Biden's performance in Geneva, and elsewhere.
There was a bit of a conversation beginning about Joe Biden's mental acuity being a national security threat. And I think we're there.
I think we've passed there. Supposedly Justin Trudeau was joking about it. And
wow.
People were speculating that he won't make it to the next G7.
He strikes me as somebody who, and I feel like a lot of people have known people like this, his body seems physically fit, it's his brain that's the problem.
Well, yeah. And it's just, if you actually truly cared about him, person, you would not let him do this, right? You just wouldn't.
I felt that Putin made some comments as well that if I was asking him a question, I would say, Mr. Putin, do you feel that the political climate in the United States from 2016 to 2020 impacted your ability to negotiate with President Trump? And just let him riff on that.
Right.
Because he seemed to kind of touch on it in his comments. He has never said anything bad about Trump, and they use that in the mainstream press to position it as, they got Trump elected or whatever. But Trump was the only guy who was saying, why don't we sit down and talk to them and see if we can get into business and come up with something mutually beneficial. Who doesn't want to talk to that person versus Hillary Clinton, who this morning was telling, Zbigniew Brzezinski Jr. and her stupid husband about how Putin is the disruptor and this and that. If you were going to go on a big international business meeting with somebody, Charles, do you predicate it by trash talking that person all over the internet? Who would do that? It's idiotic.
Hillary Clinton would do this. Hillary Clinton would do that. And Hillary Clinton, I think, in that same appearance said that the election in 2020 is settled. We can't talk about that. But ignore the fact that I've spent the entire period from the election of 2016 to today
Talking about 16.
We can't talk about 20.
But she also said that Putin interfered in that, and he's not taking responsibility for it. So they presume that the way things work is they make up some unfounded, false accusation,
theory.
and then accuse you of it for 4 years, and if you won't admit to doing what it is they say you did, even though they have no evidence and you claim you didn't do it, something's wrong with you.
It's called gaslighting.
Yes.
And it's what they've done their entire careers, and they don't want us to look at the shiny object, which is what were oligarchs in Russia and Ukraine in league with oligarchs in the US and the UK. What have they been doing to make sure that we don't stop the Great Reset and don't stop the crushing of nationalist governance? That's what they don't want us to look at. And they have bought off all the academics, the newsrooms, the big foundations. Many of the multinational companies are all in for this. And so they can stomp you down. And they know, because they control the pipes through which any criticisms might emanate, they know they're going to shut that shit down.
They just clamp it down, right?
And they also know that people are not curious enough. You know, if you think something's wrong, you suspect it's wrong, you watch and see the former President of the United States effectively canceled by social media, and you say to yourself, well, Donald Trump was a billionaire. He tried to change things and he got stomped. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not as adept as Donald Trump.
Right.
Give me another, alcohol beverage of choice. Throw another shrimp on my Barbie. Mixing metaphors a little bit, and let's just drink ourselves into oblivion and forget about trying to change anything.
Yeah. It just seems like every day that we walk here, there's more places closing.
Yeah, and this is, I think, near where Chelsea lives.
Yeah.
In an apartment which I'm sure she purchased with only fairly earned money. I mean, she would not have been grifting her way to getting a multi-million-dollar gig, nor would her good-for-nothing husband.
You know, the other thing, Charles, that Chester Holt, or whatever the hell his name is,
Lester Dolt,
and his stupid friends were talking about, is that when they would ask Putin about, Navalny, all these terrible human rights violations, and he would say, well, what do you say to the people who are in jail now who went to Congress with political demands? And they call that whataboutism. That's actually called bringing the conversation back to the relevant point.
Exactly.
They also said, like, what about these cyber attacks against the pipeline and the meat company? I mean, they have shown us no evidence whatsoever. And by the way, Putin, they're saying, they stopped short of saying you did it. And now they're saying criminals who speak Russian did it. So because they speak Russian and they're Russian, Putin should be in control of everything in Russia. Well, I mean, until the United States has every single criminal under control, how can they even make that?
Right.
Like, how can you control every crime in your country?
Well, by definition, you can't. And I think the points that were made, I think, effectively by Putin and others, were that there's some report that examines the country of origin of
right.
The overwhelming majority of hacks in the U.S. came from U.S. addresses
and Canada.
And even then, you don't really know. That, just as we're talking about the fake people and fake charities, you might be able to park into an address.
Absolutely.
But you don't really know who's controlling that address.
Correct.
From what location. So, well, we're almost here. Wait a second.
And even if people doubt that, ASPCA headquarters.
A fitting place for Chelsea Clinton to live, if she lives here. I'm not sure she does live here.
I'm just saying, even if you doubt anything that Putin said, it doesn't change the fact that they have never, ever presented one shred of evidence that Russia interfered with the 2016 election, but yet they constantly repeat it as fact. And I'm so disappointed that, frankly, the largely gullible population of this country just buys it.
Yeah. And if you dare at this point to bring it up, you're the idiot. You're beyond the pale. So I would propose, Jason, that we wrap it up.
Yeah.
It's been a long walk, and I know you've got another thing to do tonight. You're probably exhausted already.
I'm fine. Hillary Clinton looked like, when you were like a kid and you would go to a birthday party and they give you sort of one helium balloon, everybody gets a balloon, and you're like, oh, the helium balloon, that's amazing, how does it float? And then you wake up the next morning and it's kind of like deflated in a way that it like puckers in, and if you touch it, it kind of sucks in around your finger. That's what Hillary Clinton's face looked like.
Nasty, Jason. That's
like a
nasty.
deflated helium balloon.
That's nasty. Thanks for that image. I'm sure our viewers will be very grateful as they try to fall asleep tonight and can't.
Well, people can enjoy the shouts of glee of young children in the park, which
Sit
is
over here.
oh, and a nice beagle.
If it's all right, Jason, when we're
Yeah.
done, I'm just going to sit here.
Grab a seat there, Charles. We will wish everybody a pleasant day. I'll be back at 7:30 with the new time for High Dive with Lee Stranahan. People can see that on Patreon and Subscribestar. And that's it for today. People can also sponsor the Counter Lawfare Fund by going to crowdsourcethetruth.com, scrolling down past today's video. Click on one of these options. You're going to get at least 1 year of gift subscription to the sponsor exclusive videos on Patreon and Subscribestar. Higher sponsorship amounts are going to get you multi-year subscriptions and gift subscriptions for friends and family. So it's a great way to help me counteract lawfare